She's here for the 10,000. A man laughed in the Grand Hotel lobby, loud enough to make sure everyone heard. Look at her. She'll need a wagon to haul that money out. Charity Bloom kept walking anyway. At 29, she had learned how to move through humiliation the way other women moved through rain. Head down, hands steady, face calm even when your throat burned. She wore her best dress, plain gray cotton, scrubbed so clean it smelled faintly of lye soap. It strained across her body in familiar places, not because it was too small, but because the world rarely made room for women like her. 343 pounds, the doctor had once said, as if it were a sentence. Every step across that polished floor felt like stepping onto a stage. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead. Men in clean coats paused mid-conversation to stare. Women in velvet and lace lifted their brows as if her presence were a breach of manners. She heard the whispers as she passed. He must be desperate or sick in the head. Maybe it's a trick, a sport for rich men. Charity's cheeks burned, but she did not turn around. She did not run. She had scrubbed other women's sheets for 5 years in Denver, bled her knuckles raw on washboards, slept in a cramped room with 4 other laundresses, and still had nothing to show for it except tired bones and a life that felt already spent. $10,000 could change everything. It could buy a small house where no one could throw her out. It could buy a business, a bakery maybe, something with warm ovens and honest work. It could buy the one thing she had never been offered by anyone in her life: choice. At the front desk, the clerk's eyes flicked over her, lingering with thin amusement. "Room 24, he said too brightly. "3rd floor." Charity's stomach tightened as she stepped into the elevator cage, the metal gate rattling shut. When it stopped, the hallway was quiet, carpet swallowing sound. Room 24 sat at the end, as if someone had placed it there to keep the spectacle away from polite ears. Her hand hovered a moment over the door. "If this is a joke," she told herself, "I will endure it. I have endured worse for less." She knocked. "Come in," a deep voice rumbled from inside. Charity opened the door and stopped like the breath had been taken straight out of her lungs. The man by the window was enormous, nearly 7 feet tall, broad enough to make the room feel smaller. He wore plain wool and heavy boots like he belonged on a mountain, not in a hotel. His beard was thick and dark. His eyes were a bright, unsettling green, sharp as a blade, and fixed on her as if she were the only person in the world worth noticing. Behind her in the hallway, a couple of women had followed, hoping to peek. One snickered under her breath. The giant turned his head slightly, hearing it all. Then, without looking away from Charity, he said quietly, with a calm that felt dangerous, "I'm paying 10,000 for a wife." A pause, long enough for the building to feel suddenly too silent. "And I only want the woman everyone else rejected." Before we continue, let me ask you, where are you listening from today? Whether you're at home or on the road, I wish you a warm and joyful Christmas. Now, let's get back to the story. Charity Bloom stood in the doorway of room 24, suddenly aware of every inch of herself. The man who called himself Jeremiah Stone did not look away. He did not smirk. He did not soften his gaze out of politeness. He studied her the way a man studied weather or terrain, not to judge, but to understand. "Close the door," he said calmly. "I don't conduct business in hallways." Charity obeyed, the click of the latch sealing her inside the room and, somehow, sealing her away from the laughter she could still imagine echoing outside. Sit, if you like, he added, gesturing to a sturdy chair. Or stand. This is your choice already. That alone unsettled her more than cruelty ever had. She sat. The chair creaked under her weight, and she flinched out of habit, waiting for the flicker of disgust she had seen on so many faces before. It never came. "You're not the first woman to walk through that door today," Jeremiah said, "but you're the first who didn't apologize for being here." Charity swallowed. "I didn't know I was supposed to. Most do. They apologize for the chair, for the space they take, for existing." His voice was even, observant. "You didn't." No one had ever framed that as strength before. He continued plainly, "I wrote the advertisement exactly as it appears. No trick, no humiliation. I am offering $10,000 in your name the moment we are legally married. The money is yours, whether you stay married to me or not. You will have legal papers confirming that." "Why?" Charity asked, the word coming out sharper than she intended. "Why me? Why women like me?" Jeremiah leaned back, folding his massive arms. "Because women like you are always treated like they are waiting for permission to matter." "I don't believe that's true." That answer felt dangerous, almost hopeful. Charity laughed once quietly. "You don't know Denver very well if you think the world agrees with you." "I don't need the world to agree," he replied. "I just need you to understand the terms clearly. I live in the mountains, hard country, honest work, no parties, no pretending. If you marry me and decide you hate it, I will personally see you settled wherever you wish to go. But if you stay as my equal." "Equal," she repeated. "Yes?" She studied him now, really studied him. The scars on his hands, the way he sat like a man used to solitude, not performance. This was not a man trying to purchase obedience. This was a man setting rules to prevent ownership. "What do you expect from me?" Charity asked quietly. "Honesty," he said. "Effort, partnership if it grows, nothing forced, nothing taken, and affection only if it comes freely." Her chest felt tight. No man had ever said those words to her without a lie tucked inside them. "Why not choose a smaller woman?" she asked, though she already knew the answer the world would give. Someone society would approve of. Jeremiah's gaze sharpened, not with anger, but with certainty. "Because approval has nothing to do with worth, and because I have spent my life watching men discard women like you and then wonder why the world feels empty." Silence stretched between them. Charity thought of the laundry steam, the cracked hands, the narrow bed, the future that looked exactly like the past if she walked away from this door. "If I say yes," she said slowly, "people will think I sold myself." "They already think you're invisible," Jeremiah replied. "Let them think what they want. This money gives you something they never did. Safety." Her throat burned. She stood, suddenly needing to move. "You understand that I don't believe in fairy tales." "Good," he said. "Neither do I." "Then why do I feel like this is one? Because the world is cruel enough that decency looks unreal when it finally appears." She met his eyes. "If I agree, I want my own room, my own name, and the right to walk away without being followed or shamed." "You'll have all of that," he said without hesitation. Charity exhaled, a long breath she felt she'd been holding for years. "All right, then." "All right, what?" "All right, Jeremiah Stone," she said. "I'll marry you." Something shifted in his expression, subtle and restrained. Relief, perhaps, or respect. "Then we'll do this properly," he said, "with papers, with witnesses, and with your dignity intact." Outside the room, laughter drifted faintly down the corridor. Inside, for the first time in her life, Charity Bloom felt chosen without being diminished. They left Denver before dawn. Charity had expected spectacle, crowds, pointing, a final dose of mockery before the city released her back into obscurity. Instead, the streets were quiet, wrapped in early spring cold, the kind that stung the lungs and cleared the mind. Jeremiah Stone waited with 2 horses and a pack mule at the edge of town. He had chosen the largest mare for her, a calm brown animal with steady eyes and a broad back. "She'll carry you easy," he said, adjusting the saddle without fuss. "Her name's Mercy." Charity swallowed at that, unsure why the word struck so deep. He did not lift her without asking, did not rush her. When she struggled with the stirrup, he steadied the horse and waited until she found her balance on her own. "You take your time," he said. "The mountains aren't going anywhere." Denver fell away behind them slowly. Brick buildings gave way to dirt roads, then open land. The air changed first, thinning, sharpening. Then the sounds changed. Fewer voices, more wind. By noon, Charity's thighs ached and her hands were numb. But something else stirred beneath the discomfort. Space, actual space. No walls pressing in, no eyes measuring her worth. They rode mostly in silence. Jeremiah did not fill it with questions or forced conversation. When they stopped to eat, he handed her bread and dried meat and turned away politely while she adjusted her skirts. "You don't have to hide yourself from me," he said once without accusation. "I've been hiding my whole life," she replied. "It takes time to unlearn." He nodded. "I know." That surprised her more than anything else. As the land rose, the weather turned. Snow lingered in shaded hollows. Pines thickened. The trail narrowed, and Charity's heart thudded with a mix of fear and awe. "What if I can't do this?" she asked quietly as the path steepened. Jeremiah slowed his horse so they rode side by side. "Then we adjust, or we stop, or we turn back. Survival isn't about proving something. It's about listening to what is." No man had ever said that to her either. The second night, they camped near a river that ran clear and fast. Jeremiah built the fire while Charity gathered kindling, her breath puffing white in the cold. When the meal was ready, he handed her the bowl first. "You eat?" he said. "Long ride tomorrow." She looked up at him, startled. "You're not worried I'll take more than my share?" He frowned slightly. "I'm worried you've been taught to think that's a crime." The words landed heavier than the mountains around them. That night, wrapped in blankets beneath a sky crowded with stars, Charity lay awake listening to the river and the low crackle of the fire. Jeremiah slept a short distance away, his presence solid, not looming. For the first time, she was not being watched. On the third day, they crested a ridge, and the valley opened below them. A lake lay like glass in the center, reflecting snow-capped peaks. Smoke rose from a cabin near the tree line, thin and steady. The land felt untouched, unapologetic. "Home," Jeremiah said simply. Charity's chest tightened, not with fear, but with something dangerously close to hope. This place did not look like it cared how much space she took. As they rode down into the valley, she understood that whatever waited ahead would not be easy, but it would be real, and real, she was learning, was worth far more than approval. The cabin did not feel like a place where Charity was expected to prove herself. That realization came to her slowly, in small moments that would have seemed insignificant to anyone else. Jeremiah did not stand behind her when she stepped inside. watching to see if she fit. He set her trunk down, pointed out the water barrel, the hearth, the shelves, and then said simply, "Your room is through there. Take whatever time you need." Her room, not a corner, not a favor, a room with a solid bed, a quilt folded neatly at the foot, a window that looked out over the lake. The bed did not creak when she sat. The chair did not wobble. The space had been built to hold weight, heat, storms, and time. She ran her hand over the rough wood of the wall, grounding herself. No one had ever prepared space for her before. The first days passed gently. Jeremiah rose early, but he did not wake her. When she joined him by the fire, he already had coffee brewing, thick and strong. He placed a mug near her hand and returned to what he was doing without comment. There was no list of expectations, no silent judgment, only work that needed doing and the quiet understanding that they would do it together. She learned the rhythm of the place, mornings for bread and chores, afternoons for walking the shoreline, gathering wood, learning which herbs Jeremiah dried for winter, evenings for the fire, the sound of wind through pine, and conversation that came when it was ready, not forced. One afternoon, Charity burned the bread. She stared at the blackened crust, bracing herself, old instincts flaring. Jeremiah broke the loaf open, scraped off the worst of it, and ate without a word. "Tomorrow will be better," he said calmly. It was. He taught her without correcting her tone, without standing too close. When she asked how to chop wood without hurting her back, he showed her once, then stepped away. "Your body knows what it's doing," he said. "Let it." She found herself stronger than she expected. The work was hard, but it was honest. Her body, so often treated like an inconvenience, became useful, necessary. One evening, as snow dusted the higher peaks, Charity stood at the door watching the lake darken with dusk. "You don't look at me the way men in Denver did," she said suddenly. Jeremiah leaned against the doorframe, thoughtful. "How did they look at you? Like I was something that needed explaining or apologizing for?" He nodded once. "I look at you like you belong where you stand." The words settled deep, quiet, and heavy with truth. That night, the wind rose hard and sudden, rattling the cabin. Charity woke tense, heart racing. Jeremiah was already up, stoking the fire. "You're safe," he said, not looking at her. "This place holds." She wrapped the blanket tighter around her shoulders and believed him. As the days passed, something shifted inside her. She stopped shrinking, stopped bracing. She laughed more easily. Ate without counting bites. Slept without fear of being woken by judgment. This was not romance, not yet. It was something steadier. It was dignity, practiced daily. And in the quiet life of the cabin, Charity Bloom began to understand that being chosen did not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it came softly, with warm bread, solid walls, and a man who made space without being asked. The first letter arrived with the spring thaw. Charity noticed it before Jeremiah did, tucked beneath a stone on the rough table by the door where traders sometimes left messages. The paper was clean, expensive, out of place in a valley that measured value by usefulness rather than polish. Jeremiah's name was written in a precise hand. He read it once, then again, his jaw tightening in a way Charity had not yet seen. "What is it?" she asked. He did not answer right away. He folded the letter carefully, as if controlling the paper might control what it carried. "Denver," he said finally. "Someone followed the money." Her stomach dropped. "I knew it wouldn't stay quiet." "No," he agreed. $10,000 never does." They sat at the table while he read the letter aloud. It was from a railroad consortium expanding west, men who bought land with ink and threat rather than bullets. They had traced Jeremiah's banking transfers, traced them to Charity, and then to the valley. According to them, the land Jeremiah lived on sat directly in the path of a proposed rail spur. They wanted him gone. They were offering compensation, Jeremiah said flatly, and if I refuse, they'll challenge the claim. Charity's fingers curled into her skirt. Can they do that? They can try. He looked at her steadily. But there's more. He reached into a chest and removed a bundle of old papers, yellowed and worn. I never told you how I came to own this place, he said. Not fully. Charity waited. This land was originally claimed by a woman, Jeremiah continued. Widow, strong as any man I've known. She filed her claim properly, worked it alone. When she died, the land was supposed to pass to her nearest kin. He paused. They never came. I bought the claim from the county when no one showed. Thought it was clean. But these men dug deeper. Charity understood before he said it. They think the original owner's heir might still be alive. Yes, and if they find them first, Charity said slowly, they could force a sale, or worse. Silence pressed in around them. Charity rose and walked to the window, staring out at the lake, the mountains that had become her sense of balance. This place had not saved her because it was hidden. It had saved her because it had allowed her to grow roots. I won't run, she said quietly. Jeremiah studied her. This could get ugly, I know. She turned to face him. But I didn't leave Denver to spend the rest of my life waiting for men to decide what I deserve. Something fierce passed through his expression. You're sure? I'm sure. 2 weeks later, they came. Not riders with guns, but men in coats. Boots too clean for the trail, smiles practiced and cold. They dismounted at the edge of the meadow as if the land already belonged to them. Mr. Stone, one said, we hope to speak privately. You're speaking to my wife, Jeremiah replied evenly. There's no private here. Their eyes flicked to Charity, dismissive, calculating. Mrs. Stone, another said, this needn't concern you. Charity stepped forward, planting her feet on the earth she now claimed as her own. It concerns me entirely, she said. This is my home. One of the men chuckled. Madam, with respect, this is a legal matter. So is marriage, Charity replied calmly. So is property. And so is the money you followed here. That caught their attention. She did not raise her voice. She did not shrink. If you believe this land was improperly transferred, you may file your claim, she continued. Until then, you are trespassing. The men exchanged looks. You don't look like a woman who understands how these things work, one said. Charity met his eyes without flinching. You don't look like a man who understands how strength works. Jeremiah said nothing. He did not need to. The men left with polite threats and promises of return. That night, as the fire burned low, Charity finally let the fear surface. What if they come back with papers or men? Then we fight them with truth first, Jeremiah said. And if that fails, we stand anyway. She nodded, resting her head against his shoulder. For the first time, the conflict was not about whether she belonged. It was about whether the world would allow a woman like her to keep what she had built. And Charity Bloom had learned something important. She was done asking permission. They returned at the end of summer, just as Jeremiah said they would. This time there were 5 of them. 2 carried rifles openly. One wore a badge that looked official enough to confuse a casual eye. The others brought papers rolled tight in leather cases, as if ink alone could frighten mountains into obedience. Charity saw them first from the shoreline. She did not call out. She did not run back to the cabin in panic. She walked, steady and deliberate, until Jeremiah looked up from repairing the fence and followed her gaze. "So it begins," he said quietly. They met the men in the open meadow, where the ground was level and the view unobstructed. Charity stood beside Jeremiah, not behind him. The wind moved through the grass, carrying the scent of pine and water, indifferent to human ambition. "Mr. Stone," the man with the paper said, smiling thinly, "we're here to serve notice." Jeremiah crossed his arms. "Serve it, then." The man glanced at Charity. "This concerns land ownership and right of passage for the Denver and Western Rail Company. You're welcome to step aside, ma'am." Charity did not move. "You traced your claim through banking transfers," she said calmly, "but you missed something." The man blinked, and that would be. She reached into the satchel at her side and removed a folded document, edges softened from handling. "This is a sworn affidavit from the county clerk in Leadville," Charity continued. "It confirms that the original claimant, Eleanor Marsh, named an heir before her death, a niece. The claim was not abandoned." The men stiffened. Jeremiah turned to her sharply. "Charity, I wrote to Ohio 3 months ago," she said, never taking her eyes off the men. "Before the letter came, I followed a name mentioned in an old tax ledger you showed me. I paid for records, birth certificates, probate filings." She unfolded the paper. "The heir sold her claim to Jeremiah Stone lawfully 7 years ago, with witnesses, with tax receipts. You missed it because you assumed no one would look closely." The man with the badge scoffed. "That won't stop the railroad." Charity took one step forward. "Then you should know something else." Her voice did not rise. It did not tremble. "The money you followed here is mine. $10,000 transferred legally into my name. And I have retained counsel in Denver who is very interested in how your company acquired certain rights elsewhere, rights that may not hold up to scrutiny." Jeremiah stared at her now, not with surprise, but with something deeper, respect sharpened by recognition. "You think a woman like you scares us?" one of the riflemen muttered. Charity turned to him fully. "I survived being told I was less than human for 30 years, she said. "You don't scare me. You bore me." Silence fell, heavy and complete. The men withdrew a few steps, voices low, urgent. When they turned back, the smile was gone. "This isn't finished," the first man said. "No," Charity agreed, "but it's decided." They left without another word, their horses cutting dark lines through the grass as they rode away. Only when they were gone did Charity's knees weaken. Jeremiah caught her before she fell, steadying her with hands that did not tremble. "You did all that in secret," he said quietly. She exhaled. "I wasn't hiding. I was preparing." A slow smile broke across his face, rare and unguarded. "You didn't just stand beside me today," he said. "You protected this place." She met his gaze. "It's my home, too." That night, they sat by the fire as stars filled the sky. The cabin felt smaller somehow, not with threat, but with meaning. "I never thought I'd be the one holding ground," Charity said softly. "I spent so long believing the world could push me anywhere it wanted." Jeremiah took her hand. "The world only pushes what it thinks won't push back." She squeezed his fingers. "It misjudged me." "Yes," he said, "it did." Outside, the mountains stood as they always had. Inside, Something had settled into permanence. This was no longer a refuge borrowed. It was a place defended by choice. The valley grew quiet again, but it was not the same quiet as before. This silence carried memory. Charity felt it in the mornings when she stepped outside and saw the grass bent where horses had stood. In the evenings, when the lake lay calm, as if nothing had ever disturbed it. The danger had passed for now, but it had left behind a truth she could not unlearn. She was no longer merely safe. She was established. Jeremiah noticed the change in her before she spoke of it. She moved differently, shoulders set, steps certain. She no longer asked where she should put things. She decided. The cabin reflected it. Shelves rearranged, stores inventoried, plans spoken aloud instead of held quietly inside. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Charity broke the silence. "I don't want this to be the only place I matter." Jeremiah looked at her steadily. "Tell me what you mean." "I love this valley," she said. "I love this life. But there are women in Denver who still scrub floors the way I did. Women who believe endurance is the same thing as worth. I didn't escape because I was lucky. I escaped because someone saw me, and because I finally saw myself." She swallowed. "I want to build something that lasts beyond us." Jeremiah nodded slowly. "You're thinking bigger than this cabin?" "Yes, not away from it. From it." They talked long into the night. About money, about land, about a small trading post on the lower trail run fairly, about a bakery that could supply nearby camps and towns, about hiring women no one else would take seriously and paying them properly. Charity spoke with clarity that surprised even her. She was no longer dreaming to survive the present. She was planning for the future. "You'd be good at this," Jeremiah said quietly. "You see systems. You see people." She smiled faintly. "I had to. No one else ever did it for me." Autumn settled in, gold and copper spreading across the valley. With it came visitors, not threats this time, but neighbors, trappers, traders, a widow passing through with 2 children who needed work and shelter. Charity welcomed them without hesitation. The cabin became something else, a stopping place, a known place, a place where no one was laughed out of the doorway for taking up too much space. One afternoon, Charity stood at the edge of the meadow, watching Jeremiah split wood, and realized the quiet truth settling in her chest. She was not living in reaction anymore. She was choosing. That night, as snow dusted the peaks and the fire burned low, Jeremiah asked softly, "Are you happy?" She thought of the laundry steam, the narrow bed, the life that had once waited to grind her down until there was nothing left. Then she thought of this, of strength earned, of ground held. "Yes," she said, "not because it's easy, because it's honest." Jeremiah reached for her hand. "Then this is home? Fully? Finally?" Outside, winter gathered itself. Inside, the future took shape, not loud or perfect, but solid enough to last. The world had tested Charity Bloom and found her unmovable, and what remained was not a woman rescued, but a woman who had claimed her place. Charity Bloom's story was never about $10,000 or a mountain cabin or a man strong enough to stand against the world. It was about the moment a woman stopped believing that taking up space was something she had to apologize for. Somewhere along the way, Charity learned that dignity is not granted by approval. It is claimed by standing still when the world tells you to move aside. If this story stayed with you, it is because you recognized that feeling. The one that says you have endured long enough and now It is time to live. Tell me where you are listening from in the world. Your voice matters here. And if you still believe that quiet strength can outlast cruelty, don't go yet. The next story is already waiting for you.